Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Arnaud.
How's everything? You're based in the Netherlands. How are things at the moment?
I'm based in the Netherlands, correct, and here is like 8:15. So I was really happy when you were saying like let's take a couple of minutes additional because I can still hear my family moving out of the house and going to school. I'm transitioning from the family side to the working side, but it's a pleasure for me to be here. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being here and for taking the time to speak to us. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to Kingsley Gate's Disrupting HR series. This is the first talk we give, and we try to get interesting speakers to share with us some of their insights and some of their perspectives. And today we have Luigi Maria Fierro, who is the global head of. So I want to get this right. It's the global head of People Analytics and HR Strategy. Is that right? At ING?
Correct. There is a random combination of words connected to strategy, analytics, and HR. You change the sequence, but the outcome is still the same. So
okay. that's what it's all about. So great. Well, thank you very much for being with us. Welcome everyone. Just a few sort of rules of engagement, so you know what you're up for. This is going to last about 40 to 45 minutes, so we'll stop on the hour sharp, and we'll let you back to your Friday. So you probably have noticed that your cameras and your microphones are off. So if you wish to ask any questions, you're very welcome to. Please use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the Zoom screen. We have someone who's going to kind of curate all of those contents. If we can answer during the conversation, we will. But in any case, we'll have the last 15 minutes of the conversation for Q&A. So we'll pick up. We try and pick up as many of those questions as we can. And if we can't, we're very happy to come back and come back by email, and Luigi Maria as well. You can volunteer to help answer some more questions you can answer during the discussion. Luigi Maria has a couple of PowerPoint pages to share, so it'll be mostly discussion, but there will be a little bit of content. If you want, after the session, Luigi Maria is also very happy for us to share. Those pages will show, plus a couple of others that he has in his backpack, and that you can support the rest of the broader conversation today. And having said that, I think we should get started. And so I'll just give a quick introduction, Luigi Maria, but I'd love to hear more about your background as well. Being a search consultant myself, I'm always interested in people's sort of trajectories and journeys and careers. But as I understand, you're a busy man with a lot of things on the go. So let me see if I get that right. So we said you're the group head of People Analytics and HR Strategy at ING. You're from Italy originally, but living in the Netherlands at the moment. However, in your spare time, you also teach at the Bologna Business School back in Italy. You advise startups on HR and business issues. You're a conference speaker, and in your spare time, you're a father of three, which I guess explains the early morning schedule. And prior to ING, you also spent 10 years in McKinsey, advising global institutions, including financial institutions, on HR and people strategy. So that sounds like a lot. Would you mind just giving us just a quick snapshot of how you got to where you are today? How did you end up in HR? How does that happen?
Absolutely. And let me start saying that luckily my wife, she's already out, because when she would have heard that on my spare time I try to be the father of three, I think she would have claimed slightly more time. But I think this is still something that defines me. So I think, first of all, Arnaud, you are absolutely spot on. I ended up in HR almost by chance. My career has been quite, let me say, not a best practice in terms of standard career path. I started studying engineering, so as a background, I'm a mechanical engineer. Then I moved and I was coding for SAP. So I was already somehow working on the HR domain, because I was coding what is called master data. So the structure of the database when you record the employee files. So maybe there was already a hint about my future, but I was taking care of that. And after a while, I said, okay, let me explore something different, because like coding is nice. You have an end product. I got interviewed by McKinsey. I understood at the end of the interview that the only deliverable is a PowerPoint. So I say, it's an amazing job. You don't have to do anything real. It's just a PowerPoint. Amazing. And they pay me for a PowerPoint. I was asking, so I don't have to send anything into production. The outcome is a slide. Yes. Okay, then I'm going to start tomorrow. Yeah. And it was an amazing journey. I started in Italy, then I moved to Greece, Egypt, Pakistan, Dubai, to US, to Spain, back to Italy, Eastern Europe, Sweden. So I've done 10 years with McKinsey really on the road, and it's been an amazing journey. Somehow after 10 years, I realized that when you do the things only in PowerPoint, not always you're able about to translate something into production, and you always blame the client. But maybe there is something that we are not considering, that is the human side. And when I was starting that reflection, the chief HR officer of ING gave me a call. He was Hein Knappen at that time, the former one. And he asked me, I want to redesign the way we do performance culture. I want to rethink together what does it mean developing a culture within ING, in this case connected to performances. I joined. The idea was like, yes, 18 months, 24 months is always good. Then I'm going to go back to the business. But I found somehow a true passion. And then the things have been really speed up. So now I'm having this amazing job title that is Global Head of Garbage. So whatever is HR, strategy, analytics, working or not working is my plate.
Head of other.
Yes, head of the non-standard HR. So I'm trying to, again, understand if what we do makes sense. Where do we put our money? Where do we put our investment? Do we have all the HR narrative coherent? And then I have a strong vertical on the way HR is working and how we use the data, so the analytical side. And I found these are really like something that is really passionate for me. And this is the reason why then I decided also to give back something to my country through lecturing. So as a faculty at the HR master in the Bologna Business School, because I can show to them a different path, a different experience, how you can give a look to HR with an engineering mindset. And this also then led me to get in touch with old friends that started like some startup, and they're looking for advice of what does it mean scaling up HR and so on. So it's been a fragmented journey, but somehow life brought me back on the HR side, and it's something that I really like. I really love it.
Okay, and along the way, 3 kids. So that's
yes. Yeah, I think that is the right definition. Along the way, 3 kids. The funny stuff is that at least for 2 of them, I just got a WhatsApp from my wife, like we're waiting one more when I was landing from somewhere. The first time was from Zurich, and the second time from Athens. So yes, along the way you get WhatsApp. Yes,
I remember those McKinsey days as well. Yes, that sounds very much like what we went through. Yes,
life seems always. And I'm very happy to be here, by the way, Arnaud.
Great, thank you. So so let's get into the meat of it. So people analytics. I think when I hear people analytics, you talk about bringing engineering to HR. That really sounds like it, but what does that mean in practice? I mean, what is people analytics in the context of ING in your mind when you come to work every morning? What are you trying to achieve? What are the outcomes you're trying to get to?
It's a very good question, and the reason why is because people analytics is relatively new on the market. It's a new practice. You can consider that it's between 5 and 10 years, right? That has been done like a bit more seriously. And indeed, when we are like defining this position, also with my current manager, the current chief HR officer of ING, we were reflecting a lot of which is the role of people analytics, which is the role of people analytics in a context of strategy and the people strategy. You have to consider, Arnaud, that conceptually there are, let me say, 2 macro options for the people analytic. One, that is a direct report to the chief HR officer, quite often covered with a profile a bit more like mine, so less technical and more managerial and strategic. The other is 1 or 2 levels down, really focus on the data. We went for the first one because we truly believe that whatever we do from a strategic point of view should be data-driven. Data-driven in terms of identifying the opportunities, in terms of building solution, in terms of monitoring. So we wanted to make sure that whatever is the new strategic priority that we can define within ING, could be performance, could be talent, could be leadership, whatever, we always start with an angle: which are the data that we have, which are the data that we want to create, and how the data would fit two things: decision process of the management, and the second is experience or user experience of our HR professional. Meaning we have to ask ourselves, the data that I'm generating, how and when an HR professional is going to use into a predefined use case, when they calibrate performance, when they discuss talent, when they try to understand footprint. So this is the reason why we decided about merging analytics with strategy, because we are obsessed in the value creation for HR colleagues and for the business. And the data or the technical part is an hygiene factor to deliver, but we don't start with the technical part always.
And those two parts that you talk about, so the second part I understand it's for HR, but the first part is interesting because you're talking about helping decision-making of business, of management, not of necessarily of the HR function, but actually of the entire business.
Yeah. There is I think we can get lost into the amount of data that now we are able to generate. And one of the outcomes is that we generate too many insights, then indeed you do not have insights. And if you really want to be focused and sharp in terms of what you're producing, you have to ask yourself, which are the 3 numbers that the business is going to use. Then always they're going to love 93 different cuts, but this should be a couple of clicks away. If we have too many numbers altogether, you're losing the power of the communication. It means that strategically, you already have to think which are the key questions or the key action that the business want to answer with the data, which are the 3 out of 10 or 1,000 questions that they have in mind as their top priority. This is why analytics should be really connected to the people strategy and the people strategy connected to the business strategy, because it's the way to close an historical gap between HR being a more conceptual function and the business being always data driven, that historically sometimes in some company can create some friction in terms of how the two functions are collaborating.
Yeah. Okay. So if we get a little bit sort of practical in terms of people analytics, and if we think of the challenges and opportunities that you face when you kind of implement what you want to do with ING, sort of, can you share maybe some sort of success stories and failure stories of what you try to do in the people analytics side of things, and sort of what you learned along the way in terms of what works and what doesn't?
Challenges and opportunities, failures. Unfortunately, I do not have failures. No, I'm kidding. I have most failure out of that and some successes. There is one intrinsic challenge on the people analytics that is connected to the fact that these are relatively new practice. That is the data availability and use cases of analytic technique. I'm trying to, and the last one for me is the data fluency, especially from an HR point of view. So data availability, use cases, and data fluency. What do I mean? HR in several companies has quite often has been not the key focus on investment, especially on an IT point of view, on an infrastructure point of view. Especially if you think about multinational, usually the sequence in terms of updating your IT is you start with the business, then you move to the risk and the finance, and then maybe you have other support function. One of the implications is that quite often we are facing what is called data fragmentation. We have data on different systems that are not coherent, they are not consistent. So we have a lot of data, but while data, for example, on customer, there is an obsession on their quality, the data on the HR side, quite often they are dirty, unstructured, and inconsistent. On top of that, this data are really sensitive if you consider gender, if you consider salaries. So you have to be super careful, and there is a lot of scrutiny in the way you can access the data, in the way you put the data together, and you make the data structured in a way you can use it. Just to give you an example, it takes me months, sometimes to have access to specific subset of data, and not always is possible for all the countries. So between an idea and seeing a result, I spend 3 or 6 months just to understand if I can have access to the data and what is inside, even before coding a solution. So this is one of the issues. The second issue is that, again, this is a relatively new practice. The technology is speeding up. There are a lot of also new ideas like organizational network analysis. We can discuss even more using passive ambient data, email exchange, meetings, structure of the meeting, connections. But there is not, let me say, the golden standard in terms of the use case, how this is creating value. So there is always a bit of tension. Okay, we are exploring something new, but do we have a reference of this has been tested somewhere and is really creating value? So this is also asking us or requiring us to spend some more time on what I call like stakeholder management. And also you need a more like step-by-step approach. So you take a bit of time to get the data. When you get the data, you don't go full in for something that is really, let me say, the full-fledged case, but you chunk by chunk because you have to make sure the outcome makes sense, is digested, is accepted. And the last one is the data fluency. So even if you collect the data, you chunk it up, and then you start to distributing. Not always HR professionals are the most data fluent person in the organization. And this, I think, is an opportunity for the future. The profile of the HR professional, I think we're going to touch it today, is, let me say, maybe they don't always love data. They do not always feel super confident with data. So even then, when you produce data, there is a lot of effort in terms of helping the broader organization in how to master them, how this is connected to use cases, how this is connected to value creation. And this is, again, I'm coming back to my previous comment, is we have to make sure that what we do in a people analytics, we are a new type of practice, is really created to the key question of the business. This is simplifying what I call the data distribution. So collection of data is complex, use case has to be small, and when you produce data, people not always using. Maybe I have to change work. Okay. No, I'm kidding. It's just like,
it's education. It's all about education. That's what
it's all about skill. It's all about craftsmanship. No, and on another side, I believe these are also, let me say, the opportunities and the beauty or the amazing beauty of this work. Let me say, you can really see how this is shaped. How this is shaped because, like, there is on one side, progressively, you always get more access to data. On another side, there is a progressive increase of, and let me know if you want to go in more detail in what I call HR technology. HR technology, the availability of technological solutions like automatic skills analysis, automatic creation of a learning journey based on skill mapping, well-being app. All of this is generating new data and is helping also to democratizing data and technology for HR. These are amazing opportunities. To answer also to your question, the complexity led to a lot of failures. So let me say, I still remember when we were trying to do the first automatic mapping of our employees at skill level. We spent most likely 9 months trying to use external database, putting all of them together, but then the level of granularity is not mapping. The outcome is not good enough to be used. So even if conceptually nice and cool, no one can use the outcome because you are not at the level of maturity. We learn out of that, so then we are structuring things in a different way. But definitely, quite often when you start this type of exploration, the first outcome is not the one that you're expecting. And then you need a lot of patience. And the last comment, and then I pause, is a way to try to overcome some of the challenges is by structuring yourself in product lines. So structuring yourself as a people analytic is something that your internal client can understand easily. Like, I have one product line that is listening. I do surveys at scale, massively interconnected. And the other one, I do workforce analytics. I understand who we are and where we are going based on attrition models and so on. Easy products, standard products, the people that can connect to their need and then can ask questions. And then I have a third leg that is exploration. So I try to collaborate with startups to see where the frontier is, to make sure that I can also generate some innovation. I pause because I've done 24 months of strategy in like 24 seconds. And so.
Fantastic. That's very helpful to kind of understand how you think about it. I think the three legs that you talked about just now is very interesting also to help people figure out, okay, if I want to have my own people analytics function and how do I make it the most relevant for people and the most easily understandable and usable for the rest of the organizations. That's very, very helpful. Just one question. Go ahead.
No, just to let you know that, let me say, few of the things that I'm saying are not, like you say, they're going to be like part of us also of a small PowerPoint. So we keep this as a dialogue, but like there is always be a bit of a reference of like how we structure ourselves and the structure of a people analytics. So more details are available.
Yeah. So happy for people to see that afterwards. Just one talk to your point about the failure. You shared one story of failure. I was curious about buy versus build. I mean, obviously, you said there's a lot of solutions out there. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things in the field of HR and sort of HR solutions and technology. How do you look at buy versus build for ING and for yourself when you come up with an idea and say, oh, we want to analyze something, build it internally, buy it off the shelf? How do you think about it? And what's hot? And by the way, what's hot when you look outside of in the world of HR technology?
Unfortunately, there is no right or wrong. So there is not buy or build solution. A lot of it depends, and the answer is that one. No, it depends on the relevance of the investment. So how much that is a strategic priority, and how much actually is something where the ING characteristic can change. Just to give you an example, in the way we do workforce planning or workforce analytics, we decided to go for a build solution. So we are building a solution, we built a solution internally, but we use external provider to do what I call like a data enrichment. Like we collaborate with startup that they are where we buy indeed part of the journey. Like, I don't know, understanding if a profile is available in the market. I buy this data, I'm oversimplifying, but I get the data from an external provider, and I can re-put all together in my database. And indeed, then I can run the analysis with all the cut that I know that ING likes. So for such a solution, we go for a mix. So we build, but we buy wherever we believe that an external engine can have way better performance than us. And this quite often is connected to like artificial intelligence, where you need like a large amount of data. Again, just as a reference, when you develop, like we develop something on the natural language process, so the ability of reading text, the more the engine is fed with data, the more the engine is performing. If you build internally, the data is ING data. If it's an external, the data is ING plus external. Obviously, they're going to have better performances. So the decision is so relevant that you want to pay and to invest money? And if the answer is yes, is buy on the market. But always try to keep the control in terms of how does it fit. For other solutions, I'm thinking about, I don't know, talent fluidity, where there is like a lot of even employee experience in the way like this can select the next role and so on. There are a lot of platforms out there. I don't want to give any name, but there are a lot of platforms out there that are having like very good performances. So that is a full journey where maybe buy makes sense. So to make the long story short, our idea is always we focus on build. We try to buy when clearly there is someone that can outperform us by like 10 times or 20 times, or where there is something where there is like customer journey or the employee experience is so important. We are a data scientist function. We are not an IT company that buying externally is giving you the attractiveness to the employees that we cannot create.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes lots of sense. So I think I also heard you not really wanted to mention names of technologies or tools that you think you are hot in the market or particularly sort of useful or impressive.
No, let me say I'm happy to connect offline, but like now I'm working on two main, let me say, macro priorities where most likely, definitely we're going to also go for some external collaboration. On one side is the holy grail of the skill-based analysis, right? So where we are going now in terms of evolution of artificial intelligence is that we can almost completely bypass the standard process of job description, competencies, and skills and go directly to skills. So we should be able about mapping our employees against skills. Theoretically and potentially in the future, even run a kind of automatic assessment. There is a lot of obviously nuances. There is always a human factor, how an artificial intelligence can assess if Luigi has the skills or not. There is also some ethical side, means I'm happy to mention, but also spend quite a bit of time in understanding if my model, they behave in the right way. In ING, we have an ING model ethic that is very strong. We assess our models against ethics every time. So there is one side, the skills, that is very hot in the market. And this is also connected, and I'm thinking, to the concept of retention or to the concept of development. Because the more you go to a skill base, the more you can have something that is effective. And then the other side for me is going to be on democratizing talent. So how you make sure that you can have a talent, what is called talent fluidity on the market, where everybody can find their next job based on skills, based on available. And the matching is not done anymore by HR, but is simplified by artificial intelligence. And then the last one, it is a bit more old, is predictive turnover. Understanding in a better way the likelihood of leaving. So it's not a trend, but it's really a probabilistic model. And now we have a decent data set in ING, so we can also have that as an effort. I'm going to pause here and happy to deep dive in any of them if you want.
Well, I think the last couple of things you mentioned are particularly interesting, the employee turnover and then talent fluidity, because obviously, all the audience we have here today are Asia Pacific, level HR leaders. And so some of the issues we see in Asia are very, very related to hiring, development, and retention of key talents. And so before we go there, I'd just like to see, lots of things you talked about, you do at the group level, you do at the corporation level, you do from the center. If you're the head of HR in a region, how can you contribute to that agenda? When you work with different regions in ING or different parts of the organization, which are not sort of macro global level, how do you work with them? And if I'm an HR leader in Asia, for instance, how can I contribute? How can I get involved?
Yeah. Very good question. And you're right. What we develop is by structure or by nature, global and scalable. So, and I'm also coming back to the second part of your question. Global and scalable means that by design, the data that we use in terms of structure, in terms of availability, in terms of definition, is a standard within the company. Meaning you try not to use a job definition that is on Italian, because then you know that when you have an engine that is running with that job definition and you move to Germany, it's going to crash. So whatever we do when we try to structure, unless it's a specific country request, is global. Still, the initial ideas or the initial, I always call them client or the internal sponsor, they can come from any location. And we are always super keen to try to find like internal thought sparring partner that can come to us and say, I have this issue. My business has this issue. Can we develop something together? And this is what I would advise, let me say, to whoever, like a head of HR of EPAC, is raise your hand, make the needs of your region even more clear, volunteer to contribute to a use case, meaning like you tell me which is your issue, because then you can be in the lead in developing and delivering a solution that de facto then is going to become the standard for the overall group. Again, just to give you another example, we Now we are trying to understand if it's possible to find some automatic fit between people that they are looking for a new job within the company, who have been asking to look for a new job, and the vacancy open. To help HR to say, by the way, Luigi, maybe don't let him go, because like there is that role as a teller that means 80% fit based on his profile. There is always the human that obviously is checking the overall process at the end. But this was done in partnership with one of our countries, because they're going to a transformation. They know they're going to have a lot of people. They want to try to automatically process thousands of people in a click, and then having something that is pre-digested to the HR professional. This is decreasing the decision time of HR professional. That solution became the standard. So similarly, if there is something, for example, about development, so building learning journeys that are skill driven, for example, and these are one of the priorities, the development, like on the Asian side, volunteer. For us, data are data. So it's always nice. It's always nice.
Okay, very good. So I'm conscious of that's very interesting. I'm conscious of time, and I know we want to keep leave time for question and answers. So if you have questions, if you haven't put them in, yeah.
Sorry, it's just like it's because the point that you're raising in terms of the attraction, the retention, and the development, these are exactly the pain point that I think now we see across almost every geographies with different levels. And I think it's especially the retention of the talent and the development of the talent that is becoming every day more complex, because especially now after the pandemic, with the overall boom of the economy, there is a lot of work. So when you mention that as a priority of the Asia Pacific, I can relate very well, because we have to offer something to our colleagues that is meaningful to them. We always say you must have a learning mindset, then we give you crap learning that is generic and not tailored to your needs, and then we are surprised that they don't spend time on learning. Yeah, okay, guess what? Maybe what we offer is too much, let me say, not tailored to their needs. So the truth is always in between, always in the middle.
That's right. Learning just in case as opposed to just in time, yes. So, okay, fantastic. So to the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to share. And I'll just start with one question, but what's the future? And so we talked a lot about sort of what you've done and sort of what you've been through. But if you look at 5-10 years down the road, you talked a little bit about now is retention and development, and what do you see coming? What if you have a crystal ball? What would that look like?
For me, the number one trend is HR technology. There is such a strong increase and growth of startup, and few of them, for example, Peakon was bought by Workday. So Peakon does listening part, surveys, like Qualtrics was on SAP. Then you have Peakon on the Workday. Means there is a lot of growing attention in terms of what the technology can do. And in reality, the technology is going to help us to do two things: generating insights, actually generating insight, processing the data, and distributing outcome in a way more effective way. So I think with the tech, people analytics can grow 10 times in terms of scale of effectiveness, moving from a small function that is crunching data and is developing insights, so macro dashboard or very good analysis, to something that is more almost on a daily basis of our employees. So I believe we are going into an exponential growth in people analytics, because the tech startup that are there for other part of the banks or other part of the companies now are entering into the HR side. So that is the most exciting part.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, we have a question which I think tells very nicely to that point. And we have good questions are coming in. So if I'm an HR professional, and I would say I'm a traditional HR professional, I haven't gone to McKinsey, I don't have an engineering degree. And so how can I improve my data fluency? How do you help an HR organization, develop that fluency and those skills?
If tell me, because it's one of my KPIs at the end of the year. I'm still waiting for the year-end evaluation.
No, you should have the answer. You should have the answer.
No, kidding. It's a combination of pull and push. What do I mean? Like on the On the push side, you have to make sure that you structure your product in journeys that your HR professional can understand, or sorry, that your HR professional needs, not can understand. Because like you cannot like work with HR professional like maybe you want to work with a finance department where you throw a lot of data and they see what is in between. You have to make sure that you have data just in time. By having the data just in time, the right number of data, the right quality, the right moment of the process, they start using the data more often. And by using the data more often, they develop also a data mindset. The second is developing a full-fledged set of, we call it internally in ING, HR craftsmanship, so trainings specific for HR professional that have, again, different level of granularity and are focused on what really makes the difference. They are less interested, let me say, to really understand, okay, but how your prediction model works, which are the parameters. They're more interested to understand when I'm using the outcome of a prediction model. In which phase is during a performance conversation, is during the budgeting process, when and how. I think this is the data fluency, making sure that you have the outcome with the right level of insight that they need in the right moment in the process.
Okay. Another question that's very similar, I think. How can I get sort of upskilled in HR data technology if I have a social studies background? You know, I want to do data management. I want to learn data management for decision making. Where do I start?
Again, I think there is a bit of a misconception that data fluency means becoming a data scientist. 50% of my team is a data scientist, data analyst, data engineer. I have an analytical background. And indeed, my role is understanding how the models work. For me, becoming data fluent means having an inquisitive mindset where you ask yourself which data can back up the hypothesis that the business has or the hypothesis that I have. For example, I'm sure that in a lot of companies, they discuss, oh, there is the talent attrition, there is the great resignation. What the data are telling us? If we start asking ourselves, is this really happening? Is really happening in a kind of different way than was happening in the past? Is really happening in the way that in my company is different than the rest of the market? For me, data fluency, especially for HR professional, is asking which data or which fact or which hypothesis I would like to test to make sure that what I'm discussing makes sense. And this is the interesting part. When I'm discussing, we have a URC model, when we are discussing with HR business partner, I'm not expecting that they tell me how to provide the data. What I'm expecting is they help me to formulate or to translate a business feeling into something that we can try to test and experiment. So quite often the discussion is, okay, but what do you mean? Which are your feeling about this? Which are not some data, but which are some trends that you would like to see? And this is the click that I'm expecting.
Okay. So it's much more about a mindset, almost a mindset of translating business problems into people problems, and then you and your team can figure out the details of the regressions and all the technology that go around.
I always say to them, like, we have to try to be able to formalize the hypothesis that we want to test. If we start saying, I think this is happening, fine, but what do you think is happening? Can we break it down? What do we want to test? And this is a bit the shift.
Okay. Couple of questions. Let me just pick one. Blockchain. Is there a plan for you to use blockchain technology in people analytics? And if that's the case, do you have a use case to share?
Not yet. We are not there yet, let me say. And this is it's a very nice idea, to be honest. And it's also showing the potential of the people analytics. Sometimes there is a technology and you don't have yet a use case. And this is like the interesting part, but it's a good idea.
Okay. So work in progress on the roadmap for the future. Okay. So another question about the balance between, again, global HQ level type of work and sort of country level, much more detail level type of work. How do you balance that? How in terms of I suppose the question is not particularly is not detailed on that, but how do you balance the big patterns that you see at the global HU and the operational HR issues that people see at the one level, at the country level?
On the analytics side, on the
I think it's on the analytics side, yeah. The question.
First of all, let me say analytics as listed in HR is decoupled from what is called descriptive analytics. I'm gonna send you is one of the slide of the pack. So we don't do reporting. And it means that, for example, the basic reporting, tell me how many FTEs do I have, very easy. Or tell me if the FTEs are going up and down with 2 data points, is something that usually is done through the operation. So it could be our global operation or local operation based on the system. The idea is moving to more like prescriptive or actionable type of, so it's still a reporting, you still analyze data, but you try to understand the driver of change. The implication of that is that when I try to simplify global and local, for me, local or distributed is the standard report, the basic one that you want. Tell me how many people completed the performance review. My area of expertise or community of expertise is group, is not even global. My team is distributed in 3 locations, UK, Belgium, and Amsterdam, and we produce products for everybody immediately because the data set, as I said, is always the same, the structure is always the same. When the product is ready, it's for everybody. So in analytics, there is no distinction anymore, global and local, because it's like when you have a technological solution, it's immediately available.
Okay. No, so I know we are 2 minutes against the clock, and we have more questions, unfortunately, that I think we have time for. And if you want, you can absolutely send me questions separately, and then I'll pass them on to Luigi Maria, and then we'll follow up. So the last question, in your opinion, what are the HR activities that cannot be data driven, that cannot be connected to data? Are there certain tasks that HR or the organization do that where data is not connected and will still depend on human rather than AI?
All of activities are connected to human. I strongly believe that artificial intelligence and AI is enhancing our effectiveness, is enhancing our insights if used properly, is enhancing our way of steering the business from a people strategy point of view. But I strongly believe that are the HR professionals the ones that are making the difference, the one that using the data in the right way, using the insight in the right way. This is also why whatever we develop, even when we analyze, for example, skills of people, we want to empower HR professionals to have a data-driven suggestion and immediately a massive data-driven view of the reality, where then they can exercise the best judgment. And so I strongly believe that, let me say, we're just enhancing HR professional to become a better version of themselves. I don't think there is any replacement. Hopefully, a lot of activities are going to decrease operational workload for HR professional, giving them more time to have coaching, business strategy discussion, location strategy, enhancing them again to steer the people strategy for the business. So I see this absolutely as a win-win. So I'm personally see a bright future out of the collaboration of data and HR. I think is professionalize this function even more.
Okay, very good. I think that's a very good note to leave our audience on, because I think it's all about making HR bigger, better, and even more important. And so I think that's a great outcome for everyone. That is with me. So great. We're out of time, unfortunately, but Luigi Maria, thank you very much for taking the time. Thank you very much for everyone who's been listening. Sorry we couldn't quite answer all the questions, but if you really want an answer, please do email me or anyone at Kingsley Gate. We're all very well connected, as you can expect, and we'll find a way to get the questions to Luigi Maria and come back to you with an answer. And also, there were we didn't even do any PowerPoints, which is, I think, great. But we had a few pages. Luigi Maria had a few pages, and so if you'd like to see those, again, send me or anyone an email, and we'll get those to you.
Thanks a lot, Arnaud, and my side was really a pleasure. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for staying in until the end. Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.